This is 133 Darkness, and I'm here with a pod deck tech. I wound up dropping blue. For the most part, I was really only keeping it for the Phantasmal Image and the Scab Ruinator, who was a new addition, but they weren't working out as well as I hoped they did, and just the mana was really screwy. I mean, there would be games where I get perfect mana, I'd say 7 out of 10 games, I'd get perfect mana, I'd get my play, get my pods off, get the pod chain going, and everything would be perfect. Then the other 3 out of 10 games, I would be having a bird, a plains, and then an island, and I'd mulligan down to 4 at times, and it was just not pretty. So I wound up cutting blue. I am splashing black pretty much for 2 cards, and then there's a couple sideboard. But for the most part, it's now, I'd pretty much say green-white, splashing black pod. And I mean, it seems to be working pretty good. The mana's been flowing. I almost always have at least a 2-drop. Usually, more than likely, I have a 3-drop that I can just throw into play, and the 3-drops alone can really hold their own. So I'll start with the 1-drops. I'm running 3 pilgrims. These guys have been great for mana accelerations. I mean, they're not the birds, which I'm still running because I love those cards. But now that it's just the green-white, this guy has proved to be extremely helpful with the mana fixing and just ramping up more. And of course we have the 4 birds. These guys are probably the best 1-drop. I'd say 4 green, without a doubt. These are probably the best 1-drops. Just being able to accelerate that mana, your mana, and I mean, if I have all forests and I have blade splicer, these guys let me play them turn 2, so that's great. I'm running a 4 set of veridian emissaries. This is, I think, outside of the pod and the birds, the only 4 set I play in the deck. The only reason is people just hate dealing with these guys. When it comes down to it, I have got in for countless points of damage with these guys. They usually last, for the most part, people just take the 2 damage or block with something that doesn't kill it, like a spell skite or something. And usually, more often than not, I've been able to hold these guys on the field and then kill them off with the pod and still fetch up that mana. And worst comes to worst, my opponent deals with them, I still get the mana. So these guys have been great. I'm running 1 spell skite. Cutting the blue hasn't really been an issue for this. Paying the 2, I don't really mind. I don't do it as much as I did, but for the most part, it just serves to protect, like, the pods from Oblivion Rings or Ancient Grudges, and the recurrence with Sun Titan, as well as Glissa, who's in the 3-drops, basically means 1 is usually enough. Worst comes to worst, I do have another one side deck, so he's been pretty helpful. Then the 3-drops, I'm running 2 blade splicers. Foil, love this guy. This guy has also been extremely valuable. He's usually my number 1 go-to choice for the pod in the food chain. I mean, the fact that you're getting a 1/1 who brings in a 3/3, and then I can sack this guy and grab a 4-drop, still having that 3/3, pretty sweet. Also, you get him under Mimic that, you essentially have infinite golems, which is pretty great, as well as with Sun Titan, bringing him back, putting him on the field. So this guy's been pretty helpful. I'm running one Fiend Hunter. This guy has been, I originally ran him side deck, but he got promoted to main board after a circumstance at one of the tournaments I was in. A kid dropped a Phyrexian Obliterator, and it was a mono black deck, obviously, and they equipped a Lash Right to it, and I would have been dead. I would have had to sacrifice. If I didn't block with everything, then I would take lethal damage, and if I didn't, if I did block, all my permanents would be on and they'd swing. I actually had this guy in my hand, played him, and it was bye-bye Obliterator. So that was extremely helpful. So he's pretty much an Oblivion Ring. And the fact that he's 3, and again, Sun Titan, very helpful. Glissa the Traitor. First strike, Death Touch, and she brings my artifacts back. Really, enough said. Extremely helpful. Mirron Crusader has also been great. 3-drop, Sun Titan. I mean, he's basically immune to black and green, so removing him is pretty tough. I mean, red has been pretty popular at the stores, so taking him out for them hasn't been too much of an issue, but I played some black decks and this guy just destroyed them, so he's been pretty helpful. For the next is Stonehorn Dignatry. This guy has literally saved my neck countless times. I've been faced with turns where I'd be playing, taking definitely lethal damage, and dropping this guy, and my opponents are just like, what does he do? And they're like, oh no, combat phase is gone. That sucks. There goes lethal damage. Have to wait. Usually I'll pod into something else, and total comebacks. I've come back, thanks to this guy, I've come back from 1 life to wind up winning the game where I hadn't even touched my opponent, thanks to this guy. So needless to say, he is more than likely the best common in this deck, and he's pretty much a staple. If you're playing white, especially with the pod, this guy he needs to be in there. Hero Bladehold, just a heavy hitter. The battle cry works great with the swarm, and I mean the token generation isn't bad. Goes along a little bit with the deck, and I mean she's a pretty tough thing. I find that usually people will try and have some kind of answer for her, but I mean that's taking away from the stonehorn or something else that they might have an answer for. Soleum, obviously just total advantage. Fetch up a land and draw a card for 4. That's pretty sick. I am running 1 Thrun. Originally had him sideboard, but for almost every game that I played, I would wind up subbing him, and I have another one side deck in, so I figured I might as well run him just main board. There's really no deck that I can see him being bad against, so, and I mean, with between the pod, usually I'll have that 2 mana up to keep him regenerating, so in that respect, he's extremely good, so I decided to put him main board. I'm only running 3 5-drops, 2 acidic slimes, and the Acheon of Justice. I do have a couple of them sideboard to help out. I know I have another acheon. But these guys are usually pretty good. I've destroyed temper steels, shrines. With acheon, I've been taking out planeswalkers, creatures, lands. It's been pretty sick. So these guys are definitely great 5-drops. I'm running 2 wurmcoil engines. I do want to replace one of them with a Sun Titan, and hopefully, if depending on what happens, a Grave Titan, and then keep these sideboard for an aggro matchup or something like that, or even trying to work. So I'm running the 4 6-drops, which is kind of iffy, but I definitely would want probably exchange at least one of them for a Grave Titan or Sun Titan, depending on what happens. Sun Titan, he's ridiculous. Getting him out can bring back almost my new major threats are in usually my 3-drops, occasionally my 4-drops, but I can bring back a 3-drop, fetch up a 4-drop threat, and he's again helped me win games. And then for the 7-drops, my 2 favorite praetors. Well, second favorite praetors. They're tied. Sorry, Vorklex definitely takes first place. I love that guy. But elesh norn has I pretty much drop that, they scoop. And so for aggro matches, I definitely fetch up elesh norn. For control matches, shelord is almost always my first pick. The reason being, usually the control things don't have as much creatures. So the 2, and they're usually bigger, so Grave Titan, stuff like that. So usually being able to kill that thing off with shelord is pretty sick. Plus, you can, if you pod into her, you're having a 6-drop in your graveyard. You bring the 6-drop back, sack it, and then go fetch up elesh norn, having the 2 praetors on the field. Usually you just play one, people wind up scooping. So, these are great. I'm running 2 Mimic Vats. They work great, especially with all the enter the battlefield abilities. I can make the token, sacrifice it, and get that drop. So that's a good way to generate the drops. So these have been pretty helpful, especially in combo with the stonehorn dignatary. Putting it under these, I just always keep 3 mana up, and essentially they never attack. Surprise, surprise, 4 birthing pods. Obviously, it's a birthing pod deck. These things are amazing. I'm running pretty close on time. Something new, one quicksilver amulet. This is great. It lets me play my 5 drops, 6 drops, 7 drops directly from my hand. So, again, sorry, running out of time. 3 sun petals, 7 plains, 10 forests, and then 2 swamps, 1 isolated chapel, 1 woodland cemetery. That usually has been proving to be pretty good with the black. I might add a little bit more depending on what I add to the deck. Please, if you like this, please subscribe. I'm going to be doing trade binders. I'll be doing an update video, let you know what decks I'm working on, what decks Sean and Spence and Justin, who are, I guess, my quote-unquote team, are working on, and I'll keep you updated.